funky music. As we get excited, as we get ready. Can all you nice folks hear my voice? All I need is a clip. We can hear you. All I need. 10 more seconds for someone to say that. Oh, look at that. And we are back from the Queen City, Radio City. How are you doing, folks? Thank you for being here. Great show. We talked about earlier. We're going to have Jamie Slur on, who is going to give you her entire background as a cooking historian, chef, and just all-around wonderful person living in France. She's perfect today because we're going to talk a little bit about foreign countries, how folks see us from abroad, and really how we should see ourselves versus what's going on abroad. And so why don't we just get started with that? You know, some of you had told me what you thought we should call this segment. So Cliff's Notes, I believe, you know, is one of those things that's a copyright. I'd probably get in some trouble, but I believe Cliff's Note I can probably get away with. So I'm going to go with Cliff's Note. Is everybody good with that? You liking that? I see some thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up. I see some thumbs up. Everybody looks good. All right, let's do this thing. All right, we're sitting here in America, folks, and Donald Trump is the president. He will take over, God help us, on January 20th. How the hell did that happen? Remember him? Insurrection back on January 6th, 2021? Well, we all got a little bit of a reminder of what it works like in actual democracies. You may have seen what happened in South Korea yesterday. Oh my God, it took them a whole 8 hours to put down their insurrection. Their president declared martial law. They had 300 troops come to block parliament. Parliamentarians and their staff refused to not let them into the building. They busted their way into the building. 190 of them were present out of 300, and 190-0, and I believe that crossed parties, voted to end his martial law and say, essentially, you're full of crap and you have no right to do this. And the pressure was such from the people who came out into the streets and from Parliament that he ended the martial law 8 hours after it began. 8 hours later. You know what else happened 20 hours ago? A little bit, same time period? Yeah, I'll mispronounce the first name, but he's a schmuck, so I don't really care. Jair Bolsonaro. Remember him? Very, very Trumpian from Brazil. I mean, almost like he went to Trump University, spent the money and never got a degree, and Trump ran off with it. I digress, but you know what? Bolsonaro was every bit the thug that Trump was, the authoritarian. He lost a freely held election. And then he engaged in a coup with numerous folks that he had plotted it with. This all came out. Now, did this all come out like 3 years later? Was this a process 2 years later? No. You see, within 6 months, he had to stand before a judiciary that banned him from running for office for at least 8 years until 2030. And 20 hours ago, he and 36 of his compatriots were indeed indicted. We're now talking in November. How this perfectly lines up with what Merrick Garland didn't do, it'll offend you even more. So this process this coup attempt happened in January of 2023. We're sitting here in November right now, less than 2 years later, boom, he ends up getting indicted to the point where he will not be able to run for office in the future. And there are many of his co-conspirators. It'll shock you. From the Christian right, there's a Catholic priest, there's some pastors. It's your usual rogues gallery, your Kash Patels and Hegseths and whoever. Okay, well, you know what else? You know how this perfectly lines up? January of one year versus November of the next year? It was January of 2021 when that group of crazy people wearing sweatshirts like Camp Auschwitz busted through windows, wiped feces on the walls, and attacked our Capitol at the behest of Donald Trump, who'd been planning it at the Willard Hotel with numerous members of Congress who we know showed up, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Mike Lee and others who show up in texts, and there's plenty of evidence they were there. That was January of 21. We're sitting here now in November of, we're in December technically, but okay, we had that far of the next year, and oh right, Donald Trump's free and he's president again. Actually, let me back up for a second because I'm mixing up my timeline. Sorry, too quickly. It was January of 2021 where he committed the act. It was November of 2022. Sorry, guys, I lost 2 years in my brain there for a second. It was November of 2022 that Jack Smith was appointed. So in the same period of time, Brazil was able to actually indict Bolsonaro to prevent him from running again. Was the same period of time it took the ever so careful, ever so worried about political appearances, why we wouldn't want it to look political at all if one political party tried to overthrow our system. That's how long it took effing Merrick Garland just to appoint somebody. And that is why we're in the situation we're in right now. That's why you should be furious at him. You should be furious at the DOJ. They abandoned us. They were appointed to a goddamn job. It was done in Brazil. It wasn't done here because Merrick Garland had this to do and that to do. It's amazing how many Russians who will never see the light of day in America off abroad somewhere were indicted. Amazing how many other people, low-level people, were indicted. But those members of Congress, where we have actual text, we have Mike Lee sitting there in on the fake electors scheme and Ron Johnson in on the fake electors scheme. What happened? Nothing. How is it that they can do this in Brazil, but Merrick Garland's team could not, for a year and a half, appoint somebody so that he could not bring a case against these people? As far as I know, he never even tried to bring a case against members of Congress. What is that? How are we? I mean, are you not embarrassed? Is this a democracy anymore? I mean, I can't wait till we have Jamie on so we can learn about what this looks like from abroad. South Korea can do it. Brazil can do it. But we can't? You got to sit there while Merrick Garland's, relaxing a little bit, taking it easy, wanting to look political, not wanting to speak out loud about anything going on, never giving us an update as to what the hell happened. And in the end, we have to drop. And the only thing Trump got indicted for in the end was, paying the hush money to the porn star. All the other stuff, the insurrection goes away, as it does for all these members of Congress. A number of them, by the way, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, just won re-election. Lincoln, when they wouldn't support his re-election, threw the sons of bitches out for insurrection. You may know, the 6 Southern senators. We have a 14th Amendment purposely put in place, Article 3, that insurrectionists are not allowed to serve. So how is he even allowed to take the oath of office? Why are members of the Democratic Congress not standing up and saying he is not eligible to be president? Why during the process when he was running for president, he wasn't supposed to be allowed on primary ballots? Of course, the Supreme Court overturned that because they're a bunch of Opus Dei extremists. By the way, that's who was supporting Bolsonaro, if you want to start seeing conspiracy. The Opus Dei, the ones that refuse modern Catholicism, who go back to the ridiculous, atavistic caveman Catholicism of Jews killed Jesus and gays should be punished and, the rest of that crap. So I'm going to say you want to remedy this in some way right now and show us you've got the spine to do what's necessary. And I'm speaking as somebody, by the way, who, again, I disclose as always, I wrote ads for Joe Biden in 2020. I think overall, as president legislatively, going up against what he was going up against, he did a terrific job. But when it comes to how this was handled, he could have, I don't care what the appearance looked like, he should have fired Merrick Garland a year into it for cause, not doing his damn job. He just pardoned Hunter Biden, and I fully agree with that, by the way, because that was a ridiculous, overzealous prosecution. If his name hadn't been Biden, Republicans would be celebrating in the streets that he filled out a gun form wrong and illegally got a gun, and that he didn't pay his taxes on time. But it was Hunter Biden. So what I'm saying is, you want to get this right now, here's how you get this right now. You stop listening to the norms, which don't exist anymore. You stop letting Republicans violate everything and say, you don't want to be improper, and we don't want to look political. And I will give you the perfect example. It is sitting right there in front of you. The E-effing-P-A. No, let me try it again. The E-effing-R-A. That's what happens when I try to curse in the middle. And I can't curse, as you know, because YouTube will get mad at me. The Equal Rights Amendment. There's this BS opinion that Congress should have said, well, it has to be done in 7 years. That's not in the Constitution. Constitution says ERA, there's no timetable on it. Right now, Joe Biden can go to the archivist and demand that the Equal Rights Amendment be published. It has the necessary states have voted for it. And what a win that would be. Well, how much you want to get people to stand up and fight against fascism and give them the courage and let them know you've got their back and that you're a leader. What would that do if right now we said, oh, by the way, on the way out, the ERAs are, guess what? We've got another amendment. That last one, what was it, 1981, where we said you had to be 21 to drink, which I had a problem with in high school, except for I lived in New York. So, I knew the right delis to go to. But I digress. In the end, that to walk out on that note would be the greatest thing that Joe Biden could do right now. And he just, if you want to say broke a norm or do whatever by pardoning his son, do it with the ERA. Do it for all the women in this country, for all of us who love women in this country, for all the non-nuts, non-MAGA freaks dancing around with Trump flags, wearing Trump diapers and the rest. Do it. It's been 100 years that we've been trying to get this done, and it's done. Congress can't put some fake BS timetable on it now. Do not listen to an opinion that does not have legal weight. Look at the U.S. Constitution that said expressly there is no timetable. Get the archivist to publish it and pass the damn thing. And learn a lesson from what Brazil and South Korea just did. You can hold your leaders accountable really quickly if you want to. So, maybe Merrick Garland shouldn't be in government again. And maybe next time we put in anybody in the attorney general's position or any national security position, we should make sure they have the spine to actually do the goddamn job. And that is Cliff's note for today. A little angrier than usual. Thomas Lind, who's been a member for 2 months, thank you for supporting the live show for 2 months. Now, I think is perfect when we're talking about women having equal rights, when we're talking about the view of America from abroad, to have Jamie come in, because we're going to talk a lot about Jamie, the multi-talented, I don't know. I mean, Jamie's got so many talents, I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to read them all to you. Hey, can you hear it?
I can. I've been nodding my head for 15 minutes while I was listening to you, and I think it should be called cliffhanger.
Ooh, I made you that. Some other folks said that should be the name. Like Hal Sparks has the Sparklers who are his fans, and Stephanie is the Steph Heads. A few folks have said, the cliffhangers should be the fans of this. But cliffhanger will be worked in there. Cliff diving will be worked in there somehow. If there's any way to. But in any case, I'm more happy about that you're here because you're impressive and awesome. You're sitting in the free country of France. We don't remember what it's like
Which
to have
might
free
lose their
country
government
anymore.
tonight, where they're waiting to find out how the vote goes.
I saw their
if the
issues
government
there.
falls.
I did see their issues there, but you know what? I have more faith in you to resolve it. Last time, at least you all pulled together to stop Le Pen. We couldn't do that with Trump. But you know what? First, folks. I need to tell them who you are, okay. Jamie, because you're too impressive to just start a conversation. Jamie is a writer. She's a published author, writes mostly about culture. She is a food historian. And her authorism, whatever you want to call it, is of a cookbook, which I have a copy of. I got one of them, Jamie. Actually, you have a couple of them. She's a hotel owner in France, in Chinon. And jam maker, oh my God, if you guys like jam, which is one of the best things ever produced in the world and certainly in France, Jamie's will be even better than that. And of course, originally a Floridian living in France, and we're going to talk about how some of that happened and political stuff and her background writing. So I have to give you the official welcome to the show. Welcome to the live stream, and thank you so much for being here because we need voices like yours that aren't stuck in the Borg right now. So go ahead.
Thanks for having me. No, I was just going to add a little. I was just going to add a little thing that, in fact, Marine Le Pen is awaiting sentencing, I guess you would call it, for her misappropriation of funds as part of the European Union. So she might actually be barred from running for president in 2027.
Wow, another country who's actually deciding to prosecute their fascists. Amazing. It's almost like democracies can do that.
Well, not for being a fascist, but for committing fraud, which is another thing that
I mean, it's not, you're right, but the thing is about fascists is due to their nature and belief that they are impervious to any outside forces threatening them, and they can do whatever they would like to do. They always end up being criminals, whether it's financial impropriety, whether it's sexual assault, whether it's treason, and in Trump's case, all three. Then it's inevitable. So yes, she's not technically being prosecuted for being a fascist, but fascism is part of the mentality that led to everything else, as it did with Bolsonaro, and so I mean, true. It's just it kills me. It kills me when I saw this in South Korea. I mean, I was really happy for them and proud of them. They stood up and took their country back. I saw, obviously followed the Bolsonaro situation for a while now. I knew within 6 months they had the guy at least barred until 2030 from running, and then now indicted, he won't be able to do it all. But then there's us, and I'm sorry, there are people, and some of them I respect and like, who defend Merrick Garland in some of the spaces I'm in, and knowing, again, no reason has still ever made sense to me why it took till after the midterms, when this happened before Biden's inauguration, why it took whatever it was, that long, 1 year and 3/4, almost 2 years, just to appoint Jack Smith.
I do have a friend that said to me, has the opinion that, part of it was he didn't want, to go down in the history books of being the first person to, indict or investigate a former president, which is completely ridiculous to me if that former president is a criminal. But she thought that maybe he was waiting, thinking Trump would just kind of fade away, disappear.
Well,
and never run for office again.
That's what they said about Hitler after they let him out of prison early.
True.
He would just, no worries. He won't do it again. He's learned his lesson. I get what your friend is saying, and still it bothers me greatly that where you began there is where I am, which is he didn't want to go down in history. This wasn't about Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland didn't seem to get that. It wasn't about what the appearance is. It was about preserving democracy. But as we talk about preserving democracy, let's talk about preserves, because that's a place to go. So why don't we go, first of all, how about, first of all, your view from over there, how you felt living in France and feel watching what's going on in America?
Well, I have to kind of start with why I left the States. There were a lot of reasons. I had a bad run-in with the healthcare system, and various things like that. A lot of the different systems in the States and what the Republican administration was doing at that time.
Which administration?
Reagan, which kind of dates me, but there I am.
I remember him too.
So, basically when he was reelected by a pretty big percentage of the population, I said to myself, what I noticed was that his propaganda worked on a certain percentage on a too great a percentage of the American population. So even back in the 80s, I noticed that he was doing one thing with his policies and saying something else with his propaganda on TV, the nice grandfather, old grandpa, nice and kind words. And the population bought it. And that's what drove me away. Not so much that he was reelected and he would continue these horrible policies that hurt Americans, but that people believed his propaganda despite living his bad policies. And so I've just kind of watched this for, 35 something years. And how Obama was kind of a fluke, which was weird to me because it was kind of, but this whole thing is kind of horrifying. And I recently spoke to a friend of mine who's a journalist and very often is called to cover what's going on in the States. And I said, well, now that he's elected, are you guys going to start actually, talking about saying, And he said, well, foreign journalists have to be very careful because we can't speak in such a way that Americans think we're telling them how they should have behaved or how they should behave.
Please tell us how we should have behaved. Please, we need it.
Yeah. So, it just gets worse day after day after day and I think people the majority of Europeans, there's that, far right contingent who adore Trump, but that's more of a minority in Europe, although it's getting up to less of a minority. But most Europeans just think Americans have lost it, just completely lost it, lost their minds, lost it. That he's more people think he's a buffoon than they think he's really dangerous, but they understand how he's going to affect the world. If it was contained within the states, they would be less worried, but it's going to affect the whole world.
I would think NATO has to be. I mean, the way I see it, and again, I don't know, I have a national security background, but I'm not up on the latest in everywhere. The United Kingdom, France have nuclear weapons. I don't know if anyone else in Europe does. All right, I'm not aware if they do, at least publicly. But I could see this leading to sort of a within NATO arms race, and I was reading some stuff about that too. Because are you going to feel safe anymore if you're one of the smaller countries in Western Europe? If you're Belgium, are you going to feel safe and feel the United States now has a leader that is openly hostile to Ukraine and openly pro-Putin, openly pro-Orban? I mean, my motivation. I mean, it just realpolitik tells you what would you do. I'd start building up arms in defense. I wouldn't want to do that, but what are you left with? When the U.S. has taken itself, essentially switched sides.
I listened to a clip of a French, I don't think it was a politician, I think it was a journalist, but I can't remember. I have to check. I have to see if I can find it. It was on Twitter. A video of her saying basically that now with the events happening in the United States, with Trump coming back into office, Europe now has to kind of pull together and rethink their whole organization, and that they have to be completely independent from the states and not organize themselves in such a way that they will not be required to rely anymore on the United States, which is good in that it's going to organize the European Union to be independent from the states, but it's terrifying. It really is. I mean,
if I were them, I'd be looking to admit more democracies from around the world. Who cares if it's called the European Union? I'd be looking to build allies everywhere, is what I would be doing. But, in any case, I just want to know your view from over there, because I know you still have family here and you were a Floridian. I'm sure you must be proud of your home state the way I'm proud of my state here of Ohio and what we've done politically. But I don't even know what to say about that. So why don't we talk about other and happier things? What are you working on? What food you making? What good jam you're making? There have to be some folks in here that understand how delicious French food is in general, and the beauty of being able to sit down with a baguette and jam and just have that be. I could have that forever if it were me.
Well, when you leave here, you try and avoid it. But try and avoid too much of it.
Well, you also walk everywhere there. We don't. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, especially me. But I mean, as I have no idea how I wrote a cookbook while I was running a hotel. But I did my first cookbook, and now I'm working on my Substack. And the thing is that with the hotel work the way it is, it's a 24/7 job. We cook less and less for ourselves, but because of my Substack, I cook and bake because I have to develop and test recipes for my Substack. So that's basically the cooking and baking that I do now these days.
Interesting. Right.
Well, it's interesting because I'm forcing myself to discover new recipes because I'm searching out, traditional French recipes, local regional specialties, and I'm discovering a lot of new stuff, and I'm making stuff I've never made before. So it's
so throw out a few examples of some yummy stuff that you've experimented with.
Well, I just made a provincial from Provence, a garlic soup, which was super easy. And doing my research, because I do the history of the dishes as well, and I discovered centuries of medical textbooks discussing garlic and the benefits of garlic. And which was fascinating, the most fascinating part about it. But garlic soup was very interesting because it's almost flavorless broth. It's kind of strange. It's really, really, really delicate. But when you eat it with the croutons and a little bit of cheese, it's like one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. So it is. I mean, that's my whole point of doing what I do. It's proving that the most simplest things, that French cuisine is incredibly simple and basic, but it's really wildly delicious. What else have I done recently? Pumpkin pie. Did you know pumpkin pie? Ooh. The first written recipe of pumpkin pie was in a French cookbook by a French chef in the 1600s.
I didn't see. That's what I like. Yeah. When was it? 1600s?
1650-ish. Yeah.
See, I like the history lesson we get too as a history lover, and this is the food. Seems often it fits to the culture, the language, paints such a picture of various, and in there I'm sure it's various regions because France obviously had numerous different peoples that became the country of France. So you do this you do the history. You make some of this delicious stuff. Are you still making any more of those jams you were showing in your closet? Or
I am making jams. This morning I cooked a jam, an autumn jam, pumpkin, pear, persimmon with orange.
Oh my God.
And it's jarred, waiting for labels. And I'm moving into, I've arrived to pumpkin season because I make pumpkin jams in various flavors. And then I'm moving right into citrus. It's winter. So I'm doing all my marmalades. I do a whole bunch of different marmalades.
So if I wanted to get those, let's say, sent to me, can I do that?
Only as a very, very, very good personal friend, but certainly not as a client.
I would pay.
No, meaning we only the majority of the jam I make is for the hotel breakfasts because it's a very long tradition. We're the fourth owners of the hotel, and it's the first owner of the hotel in the 60s started the tradition of the owner makes the jam served at breakfast, and I kind of skim off a certain number of jars to sell at the hotel, but they kind of like sell nonstop.
I will pay for some of it because I have every confidence it will be worth whatever it costs. Especially once we pass our 200% tariffs against you guys, and I end up having to pay $475 for a thing of jam from you. Then, but it'll be worth it, I think.
It will. I promise.
That's what I like. Is we were all, inflation's a terrible thing. So we obviously elected the guy that was talking about all of the stuff that would create the most inflation. It was kind of a cool move by us. We're smart people.
It's terrible because I like to go back to Florida and I do shopping there. I go clothes shopping. I buy baking supplies, pots and pans and stuff like that. And I do it because it's so much cheaper than in Europe. Not anymore.
And you can walk around and deny climate change too, which is fun, obviously.
Especially in Florida.
I know, where there's literally zero evidence that's going on. So that's kind of...
Well, I have to say, I grew up on the beach. We grew up like a 5-minute walk from the beach. And I grew up actually in Florida on a peninsula that starts at like Cape Canaveral, where my dad worked, down to Sebastian Inlet, Vero Beach. And so where I live, it was about a mile wide. And between the rivers and the Banana and Indian rivers and citrus and the ocean. And they always said when we were growing up, in 30 years, it would all be underwater. They're still waiting, but
I mean,
it'll happen.
Those projections for the future, especially was it coral? That's the streets are made of in Miami. So when the water goes under it goes up through the streets. I mean, high tide now, you're getting water going 2-3 blocks in, but no, it'll go away on its own. I mean, it's just amazing to me what people can deny to themselves, the denial they can be in if they want to fit their worldview.
Well, when you live, when you live in a region like I do in France, and I'm sure there's Americans that live in regions like this where it's a big terroir, it's a big, food and wine. And so you're very, very close to, I can walk to grapevines where they, grow grapes for Chinon wines. And and truffles, the guys who grow truffles, there's truffle farms. Well, for centuries, Périgord in the south of France was the black truffle capital. And it is now Chinon is the black truffle capital. It's moved all the way up to the center of France because of global warming. And the winemakers are all terrified of what's going to happen with global warming because it's approaching really quickly.
Right. That's why I put this up here, because I wanted to also agree with Cynthia here and just say no offense to my friends in California, which easily is one of my favorite places in the United States. I love your state and what you stand for and the variety of amazing things in California. But French wine is something else, at least to me. I find the California wines to be a little more fruity. I don't know. I don't tend to like that as much. But I'm not a connoisseur, as one would say. So, maybe I just don't know what the hell I'm talking about. My favorite drink is tequila, so I should just go to Mexico and hang out there for a while. We'll probably be the way to go. And they're freer than us now, too. Their Supreme Court made sure to completely legalize abortion rights there. Amazing. If you want to keep that comparison to us and foreign countries of who's headed in the right direction and who's headed to hell, that would be another one. Which, by the way, guys, to be clear, I have gallows humor. It's who I am. But, when I say all these things, I'm angry at this country right now. I'm embarrassed, but I ain't giving up. So don't think I'm saying any of this like, all right, obviously I do this for a reason. And we're not going gently into that good night. We're fighting every single step of the way to get our country back. But
if you don't laugh, you cry. So
yes, that's always my gallows humor is the only thing that gets me through a lot of this.
And a shout out to all the Floridians out there who are watching.
That's right. I know we have a couple of Floridians in here. I know it because they've made it clear before. At least, we have often had Floridians here. We'll have to see. Cliffhanger, gallows humor. Nice. I didn't even think of that one, Jesse James. Thank you for that. I may
Brandon from Florida.
Brandon Woods is from Florida.
Anybody from the Space Coast?
Yeah, where are you from in Florida, Brandon? Tell us. And tell me something else. You said something about a Hal Sparks raid before. Hal didn't dump his folks here, did he? If he did, that was awesome of him. But I didn't think I wasn't made aware of it. Let's put it that way. Tequila from Mexico is the best. Well, yes.
Except now he's talking about tequila instead of where he's from.
Well, that was my fault. I mean, that's the only hard alcohol that I enjoy drinking straight.
Jacksonville.
Is tequila. It's the only thing I really enjoy. Let's put this up there for everybody to see because Jim is awesome at this.
Thank you, Jim.
Everybody knows where to find our guests. Oh, we got Pamela here from Daytona Beach. We got Jean. Is it Downing? Do you live in DeLand, Florida? Sorry.
DeLand, yeah. Family in Tampa. I do too.
Yep. Nina Ottaviani. Great Italian name. I love it.
I think Flagler Beach is up north, right? North Florida. Yeah.
I wish I knew more.
Melbourne Beach. I'm from Satellite Beach.
Hey, look at that. See?
Yep.
We go down often as a spring break thing. We'll just see. The place that we just love is Key West because you feel like you're in the Caribbean. I mean, you're closer in Key West to Cuba than you are actually to Miami. It's got the whole Caribbean feel. It's got diversity to it, so you don't feel like you're in one of those white Florida towns. No offense to everybody. I'm sure you're in good places, but some of the towns are that way. And it's so liberal there. Like, everything's walkable in Key West, and it's liberal as hell. Like, they were the ones when DeSantis was like, I won't allow you to have mask mandates. They put up with signs everywhere that they said, screw DeSantis, we have mask mandates. They just ignored him and did it in Key West, which I hugely appreciated. So, yeah, we like to go there for that reason. Clearwater, Florida, we got some of that here. We got Melbourne Beach. Look at that. See, the Floridians are everywhere. You guys may be getting rid of your governor soon because I have a feeling he's going to take over defense secretary.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always honest about this stuff. Hegseth was from the beginning was pretty doomed. and it's only gotten worse, obviously. But when it comes to DeSantis, the best way you can be appointed is through chumminess. Now, granted, most people hate him because he's got the kind of personality he has, but if he's got some friends in there, he's got the right credentials and background, Yale guy and all of that, and has served, in enough positions. I'm sure I don't know what which committees he was on, but I'm going to guess if they're going to justify it, he was on Armed Services or Homeland Security or one of those committees when he was in the House, and he's run a major state, one of the 4 or 5 biggest states. So obviously, maybe the 3rd biggest state now, right? I think Florida's past New York. So in terms of population, so I think
Wow.
they can justify. Yeah, I think he can. So I hate to say it, but I don't think we're stopping him in the way we're not stopping Rubio. I guess they're just clearing Florida out. There's a congressman from Florida,
Pam Bondi too. Oh my Lord,
that's right. My God, they're clearing the entire state out.
Wait, what is Marco Rubio going to
do? He'll be Secretary of State. My theory with Marco Rubio is Trump just looked at him and was like, he's darker than I am. I bet he can go talk to all those people that look different. That was my theory on why he made Nikki Haley, who had no foreign policy experience at the time, the ambassador to the UN. Because he's like, oh, well, she's Indian. She'll be able to get along with everybody there fine. I mean, I do think Trump's thinking is very much, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I think his thinking is so on that level of like 3rd grade or so. Average American, reading levels on like 6th grade level. And he's a few below on that too. So.
Can first of all, I want to say yes. I did go to Satellite High. Yes, go Scorps.
Oh.
So.
Oh, go Scorps! All right.
Go Scorps, yeah, Scorpions. But I have to say something. I had a lot of problems putting my sons through they did preschool, elementary school in Italy, actually, in the Italian school system. Then we came back and they went to France and they finished elementary school, junior high, high school in the French system. And as an American, I had a lot of problems with it for a lot of reasons. But I remember when my son was in 10th grade in a public high school in France. And I thought, man, this work in particularly his French literature class, which is like taking English in high school in the States. I thought it was really crazy hard. So I called my sister-in-law, who was a 10th grade English teacher in the States, same thing, language and literature. And I told her his curriculum. I told her what they were doing, what they were required to do in his 10th grade French class. And I said, seems awfully hard to me. What do you teach? And I said, what do you think about it? And she said, that's college level in the United States, what he's doing in 10th grade in France. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, you're upset about it, except for he's getting a good education. So
they're getting a very good education. And then he went to 6 years of architecture school, an excellent school, and it cost us 300 euros a year.
That's why you moved there. Because while that seemingly kindly older gentleman, Reagan, was offering platitudes while his policies were destroying much of the United States and the world and really sending us on an economic course. I always point this out. Will Bunch, who I'm going to have on here at some point, terrific columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, all-around great guy, wrote a book on, tear down this myth, all about Reagan. And it's a great book. I have it on the shelf back here or whatever. But even before that, if you look at on almost any issue, really mostly social issues too, like, we had a handgun ban movement in this country in the 60s, right? Whatever. But if you look on almost every issue, particularly economics, we go on this chart where we trail with in the right direction, with Europe, with most of the countries in Western Europe. And then after Reagan came in and taught everybody that the government was the problem and got us to accept this ridiculous notion, ahistorical, by the way, of, your individualism is all that matters. Yes, I talked earlier, personal liberty, these things are really important. That's why I refer to myself as a liberal, because that's the stem of the word, right? But the whole point of a democracy is you signed a social contract that you give up some rights for the betterment of the whole. for the security and the rule of law and all the things that come with it. And Reagan said to people, nah, you don't need those things. We don't need those regulations to make sure everybody's protected and treated equally. We get rid of all of that. And we can just cut taxes on rich people, and that'll work. And that's when you see all, the parts of Western Europe that didn't yet have universal health care get it, and they get universal family paid and medical leave and sick leave and all this stuff. And we start falling down there. Their unions get strengthened, ours get broken apart. And we have this Supreme Court create what Warren Burger called, who was a Nixon appointee, the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the American public, which was the NRA's argument that there was an individual right to a gun, which anybody can just go back and read any writings from the Times besides the Second Amendment, well-regulated militia, but read other writings and see that there's no individual right. They didn't talk about that kind of thing. It was the right to defend yourselves from a Shays rebellion or to raise a militia because we didn't have a standing army. But they all kept going in that direction and regulated guns, and we did what we did. So Reagan is that breaking point, I think, where America went off on a completely different path and screwed ourselves essentially, and have been trying to fight our way back for 40, 50 years. It's like Charlie Brown in the football. Every time we get close, like in 2000, after we had Clinton for 8 years, that we were going to elect Gore, we're going to have these 3 terms. We're going to take on climate change. Remember, Gore talked about it back then, and the things we're going to take the Supreme Court. It gets taken from us. In 2016, after we've had these 2 terms of Obama, and we've headed in the right direction again, and we're going to have Hillary Clinton come in, Supreme Court again, it gets taken from us. Like just every time, we get close to where we could maybe, because 80% of the population agrees with us, wants guaranteed family and medical leave, is pro-union, is pro-choice, does believe there should be universal background checks and an assault weapons ban, does believe we should mitigate climate change. I mean, we can go on and on and on. Believes there should be a higher minimum wage. Go ahead.
Here's the problem that I've been watching since I left, is that I don't want to say the majority, but I'm going to say just generalize, the majority of the population doesn't understand, and this is where Republican propaganda has been working for decades. The majority of the American population do not understand who does what for them and who tries to take it away. Systematically, Democrats have raised, student assistance. They work tirelessly to get, unemployment benefits and overtime extended, and protect unemployment and overtime and wage protections, and try to raise minimum wage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time the Republican administration comes in, they slash student assistance, and they try and get rid of now Social Security and Medicare. And they're the ones who vote down, extending unemployment benefits after 9/11 and after COVID. They knocked down.
They got rid of the child tax
everything.
credit. I mean, do you remember? I don't mean to cut you off, but like that literally had lowered poverty by some insane amount. I want to say 40, 50% or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they just got rid of it.
Right. So that's the problem, is that the Democrats are doing all these things. The Democrats aren't perfect. You want to say, okay, so they're not perfect, but politics is politics. And they're in a country where the majority of Americans are not progressive, but the majority of Americans also don't understand what things mean. They don't understand who's doing what for them, and who's doing the opposite, who's taking it away. And I think that's the biggest problem, is trying to educate them on that and make them believe it.
I mean, I agree with everything you said, except for, I honestly believe, and obviously this depends on your definition of it, but certainly I believe on economic issues that I do believe the majority of this country is progressive. I think if you ask about family and medical leave, if you ask about a higher minimum wage and union protections and having a guaranteed pension versus having your money thrown in some 401k in a roulette wheel in the stock market and all these things, they tend to support all that in vast numbers. I think socially, because of the Christian elements among us and others, we're a little more conservative, but even there, I know the gun issue better than others because I worked on it for so long. I mean, you have a hard time finding 90% of people in this country that agree on anything. And 90% of people believed in background checks. But as you said, the propaganda and disinformation, I can't tell you how many friends, people I knew that were either sort of consider themselves moderate Republicans or whatever, who their people live in cities, they don't have guns. And they'd be like, we already have those, don't we? We've got background checks. I'm like, no, we don't. There are 20 or so states do. I think it's 20 something now require it, but no, we don't have a national system that requires background checks. Like, they just didn't know. And, it's been going steadily up with assault rifles. Their propaganda worked for a while, but we're 70, 80 something % range supports banning assault rifles, banning high capacity magazines with more than 10 bullets. And, red flag laws is in the 90s or high 80s, just like background checks, having to lock your gun away safely. Same deal. Majority supports registration, which is never even talked about on the Senate or House floor because it's almost considered like communist, even though it's the most common sense thing in the world. Like, we register, cars, and you'll get a majority behind that, and licensing. But we literally are in this place where a wealthy and theocratic minority have found every lever of our democracy, from gerrymandering to, having the benefits of the Constitution, giving cow states to senators, to the Electoral College and everything else, to just squeeze every last drop out of their minority and make sure they still are able to win. Add in the disinformation and the whatever. And it's just, and go ahead.
No, just thinking about the system, the voting law, the campaign laws and the voting system in a country like France is pretty close to perfect. I'm not saying the country's perfect. I'm saying their systems, to me as an American, are pretty perfect. And I think probably most European countries, though I've not looked into it, have similar kind of rules. Is it possible for that to happen in the United States? That's the thing. Is the United States too big of a country for these things to work? I mean, there's a voting station here. There's a law that you have to have a voting station per 800 to maximum 1,000 citizens in your city. So there's X number of, in a town of 8,000 that I live in, there's got to be, 10 voting stations. So you don't wait in line. They're paper votes. The votes are, people drop in the names of who they want to vote for. It's public in the sense that someone, shouts at, you tell them your name, you give them your ID. They say the name of the person out loud, so there are witnesses. The person opens the box, you drop your thing in, they close it, and they say voted, and the vote is checked in public. And by, 8 o'clock at night, the votes are counted because there's maximum 1,000 pieces of paper in your box.
Right. That sounds exactly like the way you dream it up if you wanted to have a system.
Right. Campaigns are, by law, 100 days. You can't campaign before. I mean, people get up. And then press, media, radio, newspaper, television have to give exactly equal amount of space to every candidate.
We used to have that rule.
And and candidates cannot bash their opponent. Candidates are allowed to speak on their own policies.
I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah. And
you've just mentioned all of our problems in one.
There's no TV commercials. There's no campaign commercials on TV. It's just,
and also, don't you have a media blackout the last 48 or 72 hours or something to stop, the late Putin or type attack? Or am I right about that? How long is that for?
There's a 24-hour blackout, I think, and there's also they're not allowed to announce or air exit polls. So you can't, they tell you what percentage of the population has voted by noon, by 4, by 6, but there are no exit polls until, so you don't know how people are voting.
Right.
You can't be influenced.
The problem is, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can't. I'm just saying you can't be influenced by who other people are voting for.
Right. I mean, when you're asking, could the United States do this? We could do all of this, right? We could do much more. Again, we had a situation where we had a president, we had a congressional majority, and we were able to put the votes together there, and we had the Senate. But we did what we're doing now with, at least at this moment, with the ERA. We sat there and listened to this filibuster garbage. Again, it does not exist in the Constitution. The Constitution set up the Senate to be a majority rules body. It was an accidental creation, and then they just sort of kept it because it was something that was used in emergencies, which usually was to block civil rights legislation by Southern senators. So when I say emergencies, actually terrible reasons it was used. But Mitch McConnell then grabbed it and started employing it for every vote. And you needed 60 for every vote. And the minute that happened is the minute they should have said it's unconstitutional, we're not following it. And if we pass it with 50, the law is passing. And we, even if we weren't going to do that, we had a chance. But of course, Manchin and Sinema wouldn't come along and join us, and not even, so-called more reasonable Republicans like Lisa Murkowski. So we couldn't get the votes, because then we could have passed all of these things too. I mean, all of these things are sitting there supported by a majority of people waiting to be fixed. And, the voting, when we had the Voting Rights Act before the Supreme Court undid much of it with Shelby, and then because Congress wouldn't, once they didn't have to keep re-upping it, they chose not to. I mean, it's all these problems are the same thing, which is an authoritarian force started rising in the Republican Party. Everybody can date it to different times. To me, it's when they replaced this sort of mild-mannered, moderate House leader, Bob Michael from Illinois, with this circus clown, Newt Gingrich, who was sort of an early form of Trump, of just performance and attack and, all this sort of stuff. And one party no longer cared about policy anymore. They cared more about enriching people, hurting people, protecting their own, and who cares about the other. And that's been the story, because again, everything you're saying that France does is common sense stuff that we would do here if we either could get rid of the filibuster or could have 60 votes,
and had the popular vote count in presidential elections.
Right. If that happened too, then Trump wouldn't be here right now, even with his small popular vote majority. And again, even when you count his popular vote majority, it's important to note, that first of all, we should always, the fact that we're not sitting there and going to each of these states and hand counting some of the votes is ridiculous, because it doesn't matter if you believe there was fraud or not. That should be practiced after every one of them. We should feel confident, 100%, that the right vote. So there's that. But I mean, just the fact that there were bomb threats called in by the Russians. How many people got off of line, didn't have time to get back online because they had their second job or whatever else they're doing, in votes that were lost to us. And then I will say, how many Americans do we think in states, Ohio, Georgia, Texas, Florida, or four of the biggest ones that come to mind, there's others, that where the Secretary of State could sit there and purge people, because again, the Voting Rights Act was not repassed again, under the flimsiest of circumstances. You didn't vote 2 elections in a row. What if you were out of the country those 2 times? What if, there's plenty of reasons you might miss 2 elections. And they use that in all the places.
You can't say that unless voting is like Australia, where voting is obligatory. I mean, unless it's legally mandatory, you can't punish someone for not voting. It's their right.
Yeah, well, we do anyhow. They said we can't be sure you're a valid voter and that's a valid address. All the BS that they make up, even though half of them don't really. Somebody like Josh Hawley shows up in Missouri every once in a while, like J.D. Vance did here, and they really live in Virginia. You know what I mean? But of course that's okay.
Yeah.
And so my guess is between the 4 states I just mentioned, there are at least a couple 100,000 Democratic voters that were suppressed. That this thing would have been even closer. Again, it took them all of this to win by that much. And that's what's so frustrating, is we're so close and people are with us. And it's like, again, or, I use the Charlie Brown, or we're like Sisyphus. We can just never quite get that boulder up over the mountain. They find a way to cheat and steal it from us when we're just about there. whether it's because of buying off or just using the ego of an arrogant Joe Manchin to not get rid of the filibuster, or again, Democrats should have just said the filibuster is not constitutional and we're not going to honor it. We're not respecting it. So too bad. Just like this timetable they set. Just like the fact that we're listening to an opinion given by a member, I don't even think it was the actual attorney general, but a member of the Department of Justice, a legal opinion from both Nixon and Clinton's Departments of Justice, that the president can't be prosecuted while in office. It says nothing about that in the Constitution. Plenty of other democracies do it.
It drives me insane.
Right. So we're listening to this opinion. I mean, John, you gave an opinion that justified torture, if you remember, under Bush. So so should we listen to that? I mean, we're listening to like one or two guys' opinions who looked this stuff over and decided, no, that would be bad for democracy.
The thing that's insane is that this whole protocol thing about not investigating or indicting a president when he's sitting in office because it could distract him from his work. Well, his criming is distracting him from working for the country. So it's like I would rather him be distracted by a trial, an investigation and a trial, than being distracted from working for the American people by his crimes and his grifting, because that's all Trump focuses on
Right. And shouldn't we, I guess we should have just gotten rid of impeachment then. Do we not think that?
Right, exactly. It's a trial.
While they were using their trickery and BS to find a way to impeach Bill Clinton. And again, I'm not defending Bill Clinton's behavior, but what they did to manipulate him into court using whitewater, which they knew there's nothing there as a pretext, and tricking him into getting him somewhere and getting him into a situation where he was asked things that no other president's ever been asked under oath.
Or should be asked.
And they used that, from France, a mature country, about these things. Again, what he did to me as a married person, I think is a horrible thing to do. But again, we're talking about the world of politics here. And they used that because they couldn't beat him at the ballot box and kept him busy as hell dealing with all of that. You think maybe he couldn't pay as much attention to Al-Qaeda and what was coming because of what they were doing, because of what they were politicizing? I'm sorry, but that should have never happened. Yet we're not going to, a guy who's an actual criminal, we're not going to hold a trial. I mean, it's all these stupid things combining where Democrats, again, I am a Democrat. I support the Democrats. They are the far better of the two parties. There's a strong wing in the Democratic Party that is populist and cares about stuff. There are members of the Democratic Party that are way too corporate. And I call them out and I have a problem with it. And I would like to get those corporations the hell out of all politics. But, the fact that overall, you just can't get Democratic leadership, no matter who it is, to listen on these things and be like, I don't care if one guy in the Justice Department gave an opinion. I don't care if Republicans claim in Congress something that the Constitution doesn't say about the ERA. I don't care if they claim a filibuster exists. If it's not in the Constitution, or it's not a legally passed law since then that was, that signed by the president and all the rest, it has no bearing. And I mean, it's ridiculous that we would respect that over doing the right thing.
Teddy Roosevelt, no man is above the law. I mean,
we could use him. We could use a little bit of, the Rough Riders back again. I'll tell you that. No, I mean, seriously.
On our side.
Yes, on our side. Well, Teddy Roosevelt was a trust buster. He was a conservationist. He was far from perfect. He was a man of his time. But he also, was a trust buster, a conservationist, and much more. He wouldn't be in today's Republican Party. In fact, he thought they were too corporate back then. William Howard Taft was too corporate, which, by the way, everything in Cincinnati is named after William Howard Taft. They even have the bathtub that he got stuck in because he was over 300 pounds in this old bar here. But we climbed in and took a picture one day, like four of us, my wife and I and two friends. But he looked at William Howard Taft and thought that moneyed interests had too much influence, and that's why he ran as an independent. That was courage. We could use that again. So I mean, again, it's just. I want to say more good. I mean, you've been here 45 minutes, but I want to say positive stuff before we leave, and all of that. So let's talk about, are you working on a future book? Are you? The eyebrows are telling a story.
I will hopefully know more in January. It's a big project, and I do have an editor at a very big publishing house. Very interested, but I mean, anyone who wants to follow, if they can follow subscribe to my Substack, which is free, and I will post news about any projects.
Yeah, Jim or anybody else, if somebody can toss up, if you have a second, Jamie's Substack address again for all of you who want to read it, because she's brilliant and funny and interesting and is an awesome person. And those should really, these days, with all the unawesome people we deal with, should be enough. It also makes delicious food and, a whole lot more.
And I now am like 100% on Blue Sky.
There we go. Thank you, Jim.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you,
can
Jim.
Find Jamie. Sign up for the Substack. So you've got this book. Is it a French publishing house or an American one? Or?
It's a French publishing house, but it's the editor is in charge of the American market. So she publishes books in English. And I think there's crossover. So books that are originally in French, she'll take if she wants them for the American market and vice versa. I was going to say, I'm really happy to work with her because I think she's American, but she's been working here for them for 20 years. And I think if I'd approached an American publishing house, they probably would understand the project less.
Yep. Here, this is funny. Here's a question for you, Jamie.
Okay. I do know Malcolm Nance. He's a very good friend.
I'm laughing because we were just talking about him the other day. He's a good friend of both of ours. Malcolm is a force of nature. He
stayed at the hotel. He came and stayed at the hotel for a few days.
That's awesome. He will be on here one of these days, folks. We'll get Malcolm on here. Go ahead.
Jamie, I just talked to him on the phone yesterday. Funny. And I had dinner with him in New York too afterwards. So, he's
a fantastic. He came here to Cincinnati just because he wanted to what's the right word? Fix up, but there's a word for it. One of his I think his great grandmother or whatever came from this area, and her headstone was here and had been broken.
Oh.
And he came here and he was it was a project of fixing it up and all of that because he cared, because he's a good dude. And if you ever get in a fight, he was 40 years under, he's a covert operative. He's probably killed people. You want him defending you if you get in trouble.
Yes. But you'd rather have him as a friend than an enemy, yeah.
Yes. Well, as I also told people here, actually, I don't want to go into it. I don't think I mentioned the name. But in any case,
I had him on my podcast, actually. I had a podcast called Stir Crazy, and it was a lot of fun. And I had 5 episodes come out, and then my producer went AWOL, and I eventually found a partner and a new producer, and we have, I think, 10 or 12 episodes taped. And then the election happened, and it affected my partner. So we're still trying to roll out the podcast again. But Malcolm was my very first. It's a very weird episode because I had a new computer and I couldn't get my volume up, so I couldn't hear him at all. So it's like a very one-sided conversation with Malcolm doing most of the talking, which he's very good at.
He is the.
But go and listen to it, because I actually have I do a video segment where I bake with my guest, and then we do an interview. So you have to listen to both because his stories on the interview part are fabulous. But I helped him. I taught him via video how to bake a pie for the first time in his life, and it's something to watch.
So he is I'm not surprised. He's a funny guy. Just talking to him, it's like he's toughness and funny all at the same time. He is a really good friend. I was talking to him the other day too. So I put this up here, Cynthia, because he'll absolutely be on. I've already asked him. He's already said yes. It's just a matter of he went on my old one that I used to do that was just an audio podcast back in the day a couple times. But I think I can actually tell. You know what? We've talked about it, and I think I can tell the story. He'll kick my butt if I can't. But I mean, we were talking. I called him, and this should be a lesson to all of you, because I think I told folks who are listening this story as a general story. And I didn't say the name at the time, but we've talked about it since, and he didn't think it was, he laughed about it, which is I called him, and I just called him on my cell phone. I didn't use Signal. Use Signal, folks. And he turned out he was in Egypt having dinner with some friends. I was like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, he's like, I'm eating, but I can sit here and text with you while, so we were texting while he's eating dinner in Egypt. And as you know, he went and he volunteered for the Ukrainians for a bit, says lots of things. The Russians don't like him much. I don't know. I would be nervous going to places like Egypt if I were him. So I thought nothing of it. My earbuds are dictating to me what he's saying. And we're about done talking. And he says the last thing to me, and it's dictated through my earbuds in Russian. And I was like, what the? So I thought maybe he just was saying something to me in Russian, was making a joke. So like I was going to answer him in French, the only other language I speak. So I went to get my computer to answer him. And I looked at my messages, and he had said it in English. And it had been translated into Russian. I'm like, holy. So I called him quickly on Signal to tell him what the hell is going on. Because to me, I have a background. I did some democracy promotion for the State Department, where I went abroad, where I had to get a little bit of clearance or whatever, but I've never been on anywhere on Malcolm's level, and and he was like, oh yeah, it's probably just a feedback loop. They're listening probably to what I'm saying, and they probably screwed up and sent it to your ears by mistake instead of they're probably translating what I'm saying. Can you imagine? He's just so relaxed about it that that he doesn't care if it's an important conversation that he needs to have. He has it on Signal, but if it's something like that, and then he came back and said something very inappropriate, which I'm proud of him for. He came back and called me, or he texted me back and said, hey, for any of you Russian guys out there listening, if you'd like to suck on my, you can figure the rest out, whatever. And he shared a personal message with the Russians listening. But that's the world. And after Trump takes over, I'm just saying to all of you, I've already, any conversation I have with anybody where it's beyond a, hey, how are you? And where anything personal may be discussed, I'm going to spend the next 4 years doing on Signal. I'm getting Proton mail, so I've got encrypted email.
He actually called me. He called me phone to phone. He called me. He didn't call me on Signal or on WhatsApp yesterday. He just called me.
Well, my guess is you weren't having conversations about the kinds of things that he was concerned about people.
No, but at some point he kind of said, well, since we're on the phone, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say this out loud, but.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't think he cared with me either. That's why he was texting with me on my regular phone, because I was just asking him about a couple of things, and I think it might have been about coming on the show and this and that, and it wasn't the kind of stuff that you. But I'm just saying in general. So MJ, here's what I have heard, and I'm not a pro on this, but the word is that it's been compromised by the Chinese for a while. It's owned by Meta and Zuckerberg and that crew, and they Chinese money found its way into Facebook and to all of that, and that has always been what I have heard from national security people. And I'm not just telling you, yeah, I heard that somewhere. I'm saying national security people have said to me, do not trust WhatsApp. And I've got a bunch of them because, again, I went to graduate school in this stuff and have a background in security policy. So I have all these friends, some of whom couldn't tell me what they did, who went into various, intelligence organizations and stuff like that. So when they tell me these things, I take them seriously. So I would say WhatsApp groups are cool. Don't share anything on there. Think to yourself, which I was always taught when I became a political consultant. Don't say anything in an email that you won't now picture on the front page of the New York Times and be okay with.
I better move my girlfriend chats to Signal.
That's what I would tell you about and Telegram. The Nazis got into. Don't mess with Telegram. So to me, the Signal is the only one so far that seems like has been hack free, and that there's no known cases that somebody has. It's the safest one right now. So that's what I would say to everybody. In any case, there was my Malcolm Nance story, but it's just funny that you were asked if you knew him.
Yeah, I do want to. Somebody mentioned pie crust there.
Oh, good. Get in there. Sorry.
No. It's past the thing, but
no, we'll find it.
You know, you should actually follow my friend Kate McDermott, who's the pie lady.
What is your secret pie crust? Is this the one?
But yeah, but what cool. I do is I used a regular pie crust for savory things like quiche, but for almost all of my sweet pies and tarts, I use a cookie crust. I have a great recipe. If you find me, Chanda, are you on Blue Sky? If you're on Blue Sky, if you tag me on Blue Sky, kind of come and poke me and say, can you post your pie crust recipe? I'll post the recipe for my cookie crust. It's always perfect, easy to make, and I'll post it on Blue Sky. It's in my e-cookbook. I have a free e-cookbook on Apple Books, but I'm not sure what the quality now is for Apple Books, but it's called Isolation Baking on Apple Books, and both of my pie crust recipes are in there. But
I think that's the one I got, Isolation. I think that was the one I was looking at.
It's an ebook. It's an ebook. Yeah. It's only online. Yeah. I did that during.
I recommend it. Everybody, you should. I don't have a lot of time to read anything because my problem is I have to read so much for my work every day. It's so overwhelming that this is one of the pleasures that's been taken away from me, that I don't enjoy reading at night the way I used to. A book, anything. I'm so tired of reading things. So I found in great streaming shows, one of the few amazing things to come out of America the last 10 or 20 years, you know, streaming Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and Ozark and, you know, things like that. You know, and the funny stuff too, like Schitt's Creek and, you know, and
Amy, nobody in your family likes pie? Oh my God, that's sad. Just make them and eat them all yourself.
Oh my, pie is the best. Let me put this in here too.
Best. There was something else I was going to say. What was I going to say now? Can't remember.
I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure you saw this one because you'd been asked another question about your.
No, I never cook with lard. I'm Jewish, and it's not that I don't eat bacon and stuff like that, but I just don't have the habit of cooking with lard, so I never do. But like I said, my friend Kate McDermott, who's the pie lady, says that incorporating lard makes the best pie crusts. A lot of food people I know say it is. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well,
I wish I was gonna.
Pie and jam. You make two of the best things in the world.
I'm not just saying that. I like cake better, but no. I mean, it depends. Actually, I make great pies.
If you made a really good yummy pie and then had great jam, I would sit there and put the jam on the pie, and then I would eat it.
But then I would make you a crostata, an Italian jelly jam pie tart, which is just basically a sweet crust, jam, a trellis made with the sweet crust, and you bake it.
France and Italy is super
easy. The recipe is on my Substack. It's one of the few non-French recipes I put up. You could make it yourself.
Nothing is that easy.
I know what I was going to say.
We do have to be honest with each other here, Jamie. There's certain things I know I'm talented at, and I'm confident. But I'm confident enough in myself to admit where I have literally no talent whatsoever.
I put up something on Blue Sky the other day about being a very, very good baker because I just can't. And my point was saying I'm a really good baker. I'm experienced. I have really good instinct when it comes to developing recipes, yeast things, cake spreads. But I cannot make a decent chocolate chip cookie to save my life. And a couple of people got upset that I bragged that I said I was good at baking. I'm like, look, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm mediocre at, and I know what I'm lousy at. And I will admit any of them. But there are two things I'm good at: baking and writing about food.
This is one of the things I've been talking about lately a lot, which is, again.
Cynthia.
People on the left, stop attacking each other. You can say that you're good at something. You can be, you can know your strengths, know your weaknesses,
Yeah.
And I may do this, Chanda. This is a good idea. But I mean, I will sit here. I know that I'm sorry. I know that there are certain things that just come to you. When I sit down to write or come up with a political message or an advertising line, whatever, it literally just comes to me. I could sit there and stare at a periodic table for years and try to figure out how to do basic chemistry, and I would fail. So I am just as open about what I suck at. And I don't sit there and say, I'm the best ever and I'm good. But yeah, I mean, if I'm naturally have a talent, I mean, I'm very happy that I do, but I don't think it makes me the greatest person in the world. But there's some things we're all better at and some things we're all worse at, right? I mean, I can't believe people got upset with you for that. Again, and I shouldn't have even said that. It's not the left. It's people in general who need to, especially why one of a couple reasons I'm doing less at Blue Sky, much less at Twitter and trying to get off of it. But I just feel like I put so much time into those places and wrote things that I never got, for free that I could have been paid for, and shared things and this and that. And it just seems to bring out the worst in everybody. I mean, you could say anything. They're like, the light is too bright in here. Cliff, why are you anti-light? What's your problem? You hate lights? Huh? Did lights do something to you? I mean, that's a response you will get from somebody. And it's just like, it's exhausting, And so, I mean, I don't know. I like this place better.
I'm looking at, I don't know the name. I'm good at being terrible at things, which makes me laugh because my favorite thing, which I like to say about myself, is in Ted Lasso when Rebecca asks Keely Jones what she does with her, for a living, I guess. And Keely says, I'm famous for being almost famous. And I just said that to somebody yesterday about myself. I'm famous for being almost famous.
You said it to me, actually.
Oh, I said it to you. There you go.
Yeah, we were talking on the phone about this, and you quoted that line. And I was like, that's a great line. I love the show. And I feel I have the same feeling that I had when, now knowing they're going to do another season, that I had when I heard that they were going to make a Gladiator 2, because I love the Gladiator, is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Ted Lasso, as this comic, streaming shows go, is easily a top 3. And, there's sometimes a perfect ending for certain things, and you don't want what comes after it to undo that. I think that in the case of Gladiator 2, we're going to have on, by the way, a real movie critic who writes for publications and talk about that probably next week and certain other movies. So that'll be another one of our interesting, we get to some politics and some not. But in any case, it stood on its own, and I didn't think it undid the stuff for the most part that was in the first Gladiator. So I was like, okay, and it was a pretty good movie. But I worry about the 4th season now. I mean, they wrapped it up. It was, it was so tough on you. I don't know. Folks, I don't want to spoil stuff, but if you haven't seen it by now, I kind of feel like, I have to be able to talk about it at some point. I mean, his ending up going back to his family and all this, and it was like heartbreaking because you wanted him to be with his British family, if you'll call them that. And yet at the same time, it felt like really a perfect wrap up that was just emotionally kind of tough, but good, whatever. And now they're doing another season, and I hope they don't undo all that.
I'm reading all the food comments here. First of all, Chanda, she said, I think you wrote another one, Chanda, about you make great cookies, but you can't make pie crusts, which is, I mean, here's the thing, somebody else said they're not good at pie crusts. Find your strength. That's why I make an okay pie crust, but I make a cookie crust, which always comes out perfect. So, if you can always make the thing that you're good at, nobody's ever going to know that you're lousy at the other thing. So find what you're good at and kind of substitute it in.
That's what we said before. Know you're good at
market. Oh, it should be.
All right. See, I thought you could answer that. I knew I couldn't.
Well, I'm not in the States, so I just assume phyllo dough is still on the market. I can buy it here or something similar.
Well, you also control your body there. So I don't know anymore if, again, what the rules are here. We're not quite sure of yet in America. So phyllo dough may have been banned for some Handmaid's Tale type reason. I don't know. But as far as I know, it's still.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the terrifying thing about Trump is the food safety regulations. I mean, he slashed food safety regulations last time, and already they had like this diseased chicken thing outbreak. So, anybody else have fun questions about food, about anything else?
If you've got like fun, positive stuff, because I guess we've gotten to all the stuff that I really wanted to hear your view from abroad. Can I ask one other question though? From your view over there, as somebody who, as you said, moved here in the 80s, and high time was the late 70s, of course, for the ERA and activism, whatever. What hearing that again? How does that make you feel?
Furious. I cannot believe the ERA has never passed. I cannot believe that Americans will not elect a woman president. Well, I mean, that's wrong because popular vote, there should have been, so they will vote for American. I just don't understand the whole between the ERA never passing and women still not getting equal wages and the whole abortion ban thing. It just boggles.
Well, that's why the businesses want to block it, because they're scared of if women get equal wages. We have to pay women. So are you in the aggressive lane like I am? Would you do what I'm saying I think Joe Biden should do? Which is for an amendment to be put into our Constitution. All that has to happen when a congressional vote, when the vote has happened, when enough states, have supported it at that point, or the requisite number of senators and congressmen, all you need to do is have the archivist publish it, and it gets added to the Constitution. And all Joe Biden and all the Democratic leaders have to do is go say, publish it. It's done. It's been passed. And
I think there's a hell of a lot of things Joe Biden should be doing between now and January.
Whatever your silly timetable thing is you came up with, that doesn't exist in the Constitution. So that's what I would do. Are you with me on that? That he should step forward and just be like, no, we're doing this?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. You didn't have to be. I just was asking because, I like to know where people are. But I mean, I've had it.
Yes.
Anything you can do. Let them try to stop you.
The Apple book, go to Apple. If you're on an Apple or Mac platform, go to Apple Books and find Isolation Baking by Jamie Schlur. You should find it and be able to download it.
Here's a question for you.
What's the Mexican food scene like in France? I don't know, actually. I'm sure in big cities, in a place like Paris, there has got to be. I mean, you can get all that. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get all that stuff and make it. I mean, they sell this, kind of lousy, crappy brand, even in my local supermarket in my small town in the center of France. Those kits to make tacos and burritos and stuff, and French tacos. Don't ask. But avocados, all the time, chilies, tortillas, you can get all that stuff and make it. In Paris, I bet you there's good Mexican restaurants. I'll have to check it out.
I would have to.
I'll
tell you in a couple of weeks.
I
won't say exactly when because, I'm a believer in not giving away when I won't be at my home. But we are going to France, and I can't wait. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Not enough time to come to Chinon. Next time.
Well, we don't know yet. We don't know. I'm lobbying. I'm lobbying the family. And I mean, again, as I said, France and Italy are my two happy places. Good food, good wine, the culture. People are excited, happy. I could do fine spending the rest of my life between France and Italy. I really could.
Well, I'm planning on leaving France, actually. I need someplace new. So it's a decision between. Italy is a fantastic place to live. Very complicated administration-wise, very complicated if you don't have an Italian family. But I loved living with Italians and I loved living in Italy. But I want to live in Belgium now. So I think we're moving to Belgium in the next.
Is it a love for mannequin piss or is it, I'm kidding. Do you know
not the weather, but yeah.
Yeah. The mindset of stupid, young boys, which of course explains why many of them vote the way they do. But like we take the train. I remember the Eurail. Of course, we wanted to go from Paris, and we wanted to see Amsterdam. But you want to see Brussels. It's not Paris or Amsterdam, but it's there. And of course, everybody on their to-do list says, "We have to go see Mannequin Piss. We have to go see Mannequin Piss," because it's a statue of the little boy who apparently peed on a firehouse and put out a fire. And so they actually have a statue of him peeing there.
I don't even know if I've ever seen a statue, and I go to Brussels every now and then.
It's like a 5-minute walk from the train station. But yeah, we were silly and stupid kids, although it was kind of funny.
Okay, what is your favorite chocolate for baking? To tell you the truth, I buy kind of eating chocolate because, again, I'm in a place where I can't go to a specialty shop and buy chocolate that's made for baking. I buy Lindt. I buy 70% doux, which is, I don't know how it's translated into English, but it's they sell 70% and then they sell 70% doux, which means soft or sweet or mild, so it doesn't have that bitter edge. Or you buy 80% or 85% or 90%, but I buy Lindt off the shelf in the eating chocolate aisle, and it's perfect.
Oh. I'm just asking her. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask Gracie.
Where's your husband from? Where's your husband from?
That's what I just put in the comments. I wanted to know because I lived down in Villefranche, which is right next to Nice, when I was there. So I was in the south of France. I mean, not for long enough. It's just a summer, but what a pleasure that was. And of course, where Jamie is, Chinon, what is sort of middle towards the west, kind of. I mean, you're not too far from Bordeaux, right?
We're about 3-hour drive from Bordeaux. Yeah, we're in the Loire Valley, where all the chateaux are. Yeah. He's from Ghana, near Vichy. Okay.
Near Vichy. Okay. I don't think
that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Yeah,
not anymore.
No, I know.
Aldi has good chocolate.
I can't help but have that go through my mind, but right away. But I don't know is that how it's pronounced? I should know, but that's not a French pronunciation I even am familiar with.
What, Ghana?
Yeah. Is that what it is? Ghana? That's what I figured. I have not.
That's interesting, Amy.
It is actually, and again, well, that means if you need to go back to France, if times call for it, it's a great place to live. I guess I'll answer this. The only way I can answer this, Jesse, is that I was an immature, stupid little kid. You know what I mean? Like, when you're an 18 or 19-year-old, you're like, hey, let's go see. It's funny. The statue pees. I mean, I wish I could come up with like a better description of myself. I mean, I still have an impish sense of humor, even at this point in my life. So you can imagine how much worse it was like 30 years ago, right? In any case.
I do want to pitch. My other cookbook is Orange Appeal, which is out of print, but you can still occasionally find hard copies on, from outside vendors on Amazon. But you can buy Kindle, the Kindle version of it, and it's pretty cheap. And the recipes are great. I mean, the recipes are great in the sense that I had about 15 or 20 recipe testers, so all my recipes work, which doesn't always happen.
And I bought that book. That's the one hard copy. I've got the one ebook of yours, and I've got one hard copy book. And Orange Appeal I bought for my wife because she's part Sicilian, which she can cook. She's a terrific cook, and I am a terrible one. And so she used it, and we've made. I'm trying to think what came out of there, but I'm sure if you brought a couple things up, I'd let you know.
I do want to say that it got translated into German this year. There's a German copy, and it just won a prize. It just won a silver medal at the German Cookbook Awards. I'm very pleased.
Did they pin it on you? Did you get to stand up on like a stand somewhere like the Olympics?
I'm hoping that they send me the paper certificate that they got. I'm waiting. I have to actually email them to see if they'll send it to me. So it's quite exciting. That's
awesome.
Things.
Congratulations. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all, but it's good that they're like appreciating your contributions to the field
Yeah,
of
I mean,
orange.
who would think that Germans would be so? I mean, that oranges would be so popular in Germany.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
They are.
That is a place I've actually had, no offense, or but just fact, I've spent very little time there. I went to Berlin because I had some family that was from there that came to the United States when I was traveling around Europe, but we only spent about 2 to 3 days there, and I have been nowhere else in Germany. I don't know. I have to say that when I was doing traveling around when I was in college in the 90s, I mean, it's weird to think that was 30 years ago, and the 90s, it was only 40 years since people like me were being mass murdered in Germany. So I'll admit it, in the 90s, it wasn't a place that attracted me and made me want to run to. It's not to say that I wouldn't go there. It's to say I hold anything against anybody who was not alive then, because I do not. I don't blame anybody who wasn't around. It just was, you get feelings about places and you can only go to so many places. And so you're making a list, and that just didn't end up being high on the list, but I'd love to go. My wife's been to Munich and says wonderful things about what a fun city it is. And so I'm hoping at some point to go.
My son lived
in a little more time.
My son lived in Munich for 3 years. I loved it.
You like it?
Yeah, he loved it. Cool city. I didn't visit, and I'm sorry I didn't visit before he left.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up. What I usually do is I just stay after for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I am heading towards the point where I will run out of time, so that I can just answer any questions for folks here and talk to them. But on the way out the door, anything else that we should tell folks, Jamie, besides how cool you are?
I get very embarrassed, but when people say that, but I'll take it. But
take it. So listen, you've heard about her books. You know where to find. We put up the Substack a few times. We can put it up again. We put up, if we got her Blue Sky, let's put that up.
I will say that like I said, I've moved from Twitter. I still have my account, but I don't go there really anymore. I'm on Blue Sky. If you have any questions for me, or, have any questions about cooking or baking, if I can answer them, whatever. Just say hi. I try and answer everybody who sends me, who comments or whatever. I try and answer everybody. So feel free.
It's the fun of it. I mean, again,
I like community.
Me too. That's why I do this. Like, I want to answer. I don't get to them all. I can't possibly, but I want to answer people's questions and respond. And, what do we see? We have somebody say? Really
I'm just thinking.
Yep. Well, I'm really glad, because that's some of what I'm going to ask you guys about that. And I assume that this would be the answer, because, again, this is my vision of what I want my channel to become. Politics is an incredibly important part of my life. It's been my career, and I'm going to fight till the end. Let's hope it doesn't. I don't have to, but I want to do stuff like this. I want to have Jamie on the way we had when John Fugelsang was on. I just want to say this quickly, Jamie. When I had John on yesterday, we went into his career as a comedian and coming up, and his background in religion. I want these to be 3-dimensional. I don't want to just talk about politics. I want to bring people on like you, like John. We've got another great guest tomorrow. If you guys know Mystery Science Theater, Bill Corbett, famously one of the voices of Mystery Science Theater 3000, 3K, and also Riff Rax now. And he's, an actor, wrote a movie that Eddie Murphy was in, and all-around terrific liberal guy is going to be on. He'll be funny and interesting. And that's the thing, is we're going to talk a little bit about his background in entertainment, as well as his political beliefs that align with ours, because I think there's room to talk about politics. And then also, like, Jamie is a blood, a human filled with, actual blood, and not a robot. She's not Elon Musk. So beyond the politics stuff, well, I'm saying you're not a robot. So beyond the politics stuff, I want to talk. I want to actually get, like, people's, I want people to tell you who they are. I mean, to me, why I always go into the comments, like when somebody says my husband's from France, and immediately Jamie and I are the type of people that makes us say, where? Because I like learning about people. So I'm hoping you guys, and you certainly seem to be, are the same way, which is politics is important, but guess what? We can actually learn about, I can learn, and I've learned stuff about Jamie during this conversation. Like, interesting people have interesting things to say, and that's that's something for me that I'm going to make a big part of this. It's going to be people that are politics, but other stuff too.
I do want to say one thing. First of all, I'm at Life's a Feast on Instagram and Blue Sky, at Life's a Feast, and my Substack is Life's a Feast. But I just want to say, I was thinking about this, that when I was thinking about what we would talk about tonight.
That's right. It's late there.
Election, this campaign, these last several years, I think the last 4 years probably, and probably the last 8 years, politics has driven us insane. And I think everybody who's here, who tunes into Cliff's show, follows politics. And I think this election just destroyed so many people. It just is so difficult to think about all the time that, I've tried to kind of pull away from it a little bit and concentrate more on my food and on my writing, and for a certain amount of time every day. And I just think it's really important that we kind of focus, everybody find what gives them, their happy place, what they can go into and forget about the rest of the world for 15 minutes, for 3 hours at a time, whatever. And just really concentrate on that thing, whether it's, food writing or knitting or, watching movies or whatever it is. And talk about it a lot more with each other on social media or wherever we communicate with each other, and just like start talking about other stuff, because we all need that mental break, especially if we are going to continue to fight this, everything that's happening in the States. We need to really, have periods every day where we're just taking that, we're someplace else mentally, psychologically, physically.
And I think also when you connect on that level, on a level beyond just politics, again, like this is some of, sadly, what the right did for you.
Oh, wait, sorry, Jim, those, yep. I don't use those, I don't post on my Life's a Feast. It's live, but I don't post on it anymore. Now I'm on the Substack. And I have a different, JamieSchler.com, well, I think works.
This one's good.
I have a bento account, bento.me/JamieSchler, something like that, which is my portfolio, which is all my published work too, and links to my podcast episodes and stuff.
But you definitely, obviously, it's okay. I mean, we all have, I think I've got a website up there I haven't done anything with for I don't know how long. Blue Sky is definitely a place people can find you. The Substack is definitely where people can find you. Sheldon Hughes with the super chat. I really enjoyed today's guest. Thanks, Cliff. Thank you. Sheldon. Sort of haven't even asked anybody, I've reminded you guys, super chats and super stickers and new members. That's ways that I'm able to keep doing this. So if anybody wants to do that, please do. They're much appreciated and helpful. And I'll talk to you all. We'll just see if we have a couple more questions, but I think at this point it's been a fantastic conversation with Jamie. You even beat out yesterday's reigning champion Fugelsang, who went for about an hour and 5 or hour and 10 minutes. I think you've been here an hour and 25 minutes.
I love talking.
You're just a good person, and I don't just say that. That is true. You want to know, you want to meet people, you want to know their story.
I do.
I think that's fantastic.
I do.
So
I love, I hate people. I'm a misanthrope, but I love people too. So, and
that's what I say too. I hate bad people. I'm a sociopath when it comes to bad people in bad faith who do bad things to other people. I have literally no sympathy for at all. But good people are the best. So,
and I've discovered the most important thing that I've discovered through social media and everything I've done with social media, on group Zooms and stuff, is that, there's all those people on social media, but when you get to know them one by one, they're all, I've met some of the most fascinating people who I would never think just by seeing them pass by on social media that they had all, really fascinating people who do fascinating stuff.
Hey, we met each other, and theoretically we do semi-fascinating things, right? And we met on social media. That's a classic example.
Yeah.
And had enough to say. Well, listen, Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Cliff. So are you.
Oh, well,
I'm glad.
Thank you. And it's inevitable. As long as the sun keeps rising in the morning, and we hope that happens. Again, nothing's sure in this world anymore. But as long as that happens, you will be back on this show as long as you're interested in coming back within the next few months, because absolutely, it was a pleasure talking to you. And I think folks really enjoyed it and want to be able to talk a little politics, but talk about some other stuff too. So
thank you, Cliff. I had a great time.
I will be
back whenever you want. And good night to everybody else. And
thanks so much, Amy. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye. Well, wasn't that fun, guys? I had a blast. Jamie's really everything I said, but I said it about everybody because I really try to make the guests I have on here. I have a good people rule. I really want people that I genuinely, really, really, really like. You know, I don't want to have people on here because they know a lot and whatever, but I'm secretly feeling like I don't really like this person. So, and I get to choose who comes on. And I'm telling you, they're going to be good people. You're going to like them. As again, I think you like John. I think you like some of the past guests we've had on. So we're going to keep doing that. So does anybody else just follow Jamie on Blue Sky? Barbara Binstein, cool. Find me there too, Barbara. I think you're following me there, Barbara. I'm not going to, be there. I'll be on YouTube more. So I'd say please subscribe to the YouTube. Watch this. We can do this. Cliffs _edge. You guys have to realize I am now. I see Jim beat me to it. He's so much better than I am. You have to understand, I am now I want to say 1,400 away from 100,000, where they actually give you a human you can talk about marketing and decide that you're worth it for them because you might make them money. But their self-interest is my self-interest. So I may be able to really grow the channel, and then more revenue comes in, I can do more of these things. So everybody wins. And that's the plan. So please subscribe there. Again, I will say, please become a Patreon member, or see, Chandra is right in there. Just gifted a membership. Thank you so much. Any more before we go? Do I have to do my Jerry Maguire, my terrible impression? Come on. One more. Who's going to be? Who's going with me? I don't know if I have the energy for it today. If anybody can toss in a super sticker or wants to join the club and become a member. Anyone? One more before I leave? Anyone? Come on. Somebody's got to do it. Okay, I'm gonna give it a little bit, but I'm gonna say to you in the meantime, today's episode was a pleasure to do. Last 2 days have been longer ones, so it's been, we've gotten some great conversations. Cliff, can you please label your rebroadcast shows? Yes, I'm going to try to do that. I did that once or twice and then I forgot. I'm not obviously trying to trick anybody. There we go. Dr. Kev's gal. Thank you. We got our member. Doesn't mean the rest of you can't also become members and give, super chats. Please do. But what you're saying, Barbara, I want people to know I'm not trying to trick anybody. It's just a lot of people are not free this time of day. So, for example, when I replayed at 9, like I did last night, the one with John, I believe, got another 1,200 or 1,500 or 2,000 people that weren't available during the day. And I always do it at 9 o'clock at night, and I always do it at 9 o'clock the next morning. Now holidays, I may even do it a few extra times, but stuff like that where I don't have as much content. But basically, I'm always going to rebroadcast at least twice, and I do that on purpose, again, because I want people to have a chance to see these. And so that is always the reason we're doing it. My hubby's a sommelier. If you need any recommendations, well, Grace, all right, I may need some recommendations. It's been a while for me since I've been there, so maybe share some good stuff. But I think that's it. I think we've had what I will call a quality time here. You guys are great. Thank you for being here. We don't have any other pressing questions or any other pressing super stickers. I think we've reached that point. Listen, guys, you're awesome. And Grace, I appreciate that. Do that the next live stream. That'll be great. I will be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place. I'll be here at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll have Bill Corbett. We'll probably have another long one because Bill is funny as hell. Again, Mystery Science Theater and all. If you haven't seen that stuff, he's hilarious. and you know, we'll see what Bill has to say. But in the meantime, folks, it's been a pleasure. And as the sun sets slowly in the west, I bid you a fond farewell.